Welcome back for episode 5 of Disturbing Reddit Posts, a series where I cover disturbing Reddit posts. Let's investigate. If you enjoy internet mysteries and generally disturbing content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a Ko-fi member or a channel member to gain access to uncut videos and other perks, or you can leave me a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Thanks to anyone who considers this. This video will contain discussions of topics that some might find triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. You can become a Ko-fi member or a channel member to watch an uncut version of this video, which features a whole extra entry that was unsuitable for this cut. The first post of the video comes from the legal advice subreddit and is titled, "My husband is missing, I think his parents are involved." It read, "My husband was away for work last week and was supposed to come home Saturday. He was not responsive until I texted his mother to ask if she'd heard from him. He then answered his phone immediately after at 3 p.m. to tell me, 'I love you, I'm not coming back, I need to do some soul searching, I'll talk to you later this week.' He was on the speakerphone and sounded very strange, like I imagine a hostage would sound. We have no problems in our marriage, I was completely blindsided. My husband has depression, paranoia, and undiagnosed autism. His father is a silver-tongued narcissist who has always manipulated and abused him. His parents have always hated me and tried to get rid of me, going so far as to bribe a therapist to tell him to leave me, tried to verbally force him to leave me, and even went so far as to convince my husband that the police were going to kill him if he stayed in our state. His father is a powerful figure in their home state, let's say state B, while we live in state A. I went to my husband's work Monday after a co-worker told me he was there, but then I received cryptic text messages from his phone telling me to leave and he'll contact me later. I'm beginning to suspect that he is not in possession of his cell phone at all, and I'm terrified his parents had had him committed without his consent or pressed a false legal charge against him. I haven't heard anything since. I'm filing a missing persons report here in State A today. I've told both his phone and his mother's, who has been refusing all contact with me, that I will be doing so, but aside from that I have no idea what to do. Edit. Went to the police, they called his parents, who were evasive and said he's fine and they're in contact with him, but were behaving strangely. They also continue to ignore any attempt of mine to contact them. The police said there's nothing they can do. OP's husband's parents sound absolutely crazy. Imagine convincing your son he's going to be killed by the police if he doesn't move states just to get him to leave his partner that he chose to be with. And I don't know what's worse, them bribing his therapist or the therapist accepting the bribe. Even before the husband's apparent disappearance, it sounds like the marriage was a nightmare for OP. It's not uncommon to have problems with your in-laws, but it's scary that these ones go to such great lengths to sabotage the marriage. I don't think we have enough context to assume the parents have done anything nefarious to their son, but I also wouldn't rule it out. There could at least be some kind of coercion or manipulation involved on their part. Either way, it certainly sounds like they know where he is and what's going on. OP definitely did the right thing contacting the police, but unfortunately there's nothing they can do, so I'm not sure what their next step could be beyond freezing any shared bank accounts to protect themselves financially. It must be torture not having any way of finding out why the husband left and if he's even okay though. OP would soon get the answers they needed, and the reality was much less concerning than they worried it might be. Edit 2. The sheriff called me and met me at the house to hand me signed divorce papers. I have no idea what happened. He never contacted me. Thanks for the help, Reddit, but I guess that's that. Edit 3. An affair. He was having an affair. And being the trusting little autist that I am, I never suspected a thing. I'm sure his parents were aware as well. Obviously, I'm glad to hear the husband wasn't in any danger at the hands of his parents, but what an awful outcome for OP. They were so concerned about his well-being that they didn't even consider that the reason for him leaving was actually one of the most likely possibilities. A few days later, they posted on the divorce subreddit with a bit more context. I thought my marriage was fantastic. I'd never been happier in my life. We just bought a house and were picking out paint colours, and then the day he was supposed to come back from a work trip, he just said, "I'm not coming back." 2 days later, he filed for divorce after refusing all contact with me except when I went to his office to try and talk to him, and he told me more or less to piss off. He hasn't contacted me since. I've come to realise that all the signs of an affair were present and I just didn't see them. I loved him more than anything, and I'd have done anything to save our marriage, but he didn't even bother. I found out that he'd filed from an officer who came to the house. 7 years together, since I was 19, we'd just celebrated our second wedding anniversary, and he just threw me away like trash. My family and friends are amazing and are doing everything they can, but none of them can really understand the hell I'm going through. I can see all the problems we had now that I'd been blind to, but knowing why it failed doesn't help the agonising, gaping hole in my chest. I didn't know it was possible to hurt this badly. I just want to be loved, but I feel like that's never going to happen again. I'm scared to go on. I'm afraid no one is going to want to be with me as a transgender man and one that's been divorced. All the while, the loneliness is crushing me. I miss my husband. I miss my best friend. I miss the man that loved me. So this had a very depressing ending. The divorce would have been hard on OP regardless of the circumstances, but the way the husband went about it made it so much worse. I don't know how you'd get over the trust issues that something like this would inevitably cause, but I really hope they find a way and eventually find someone who makes them happy. In March this year, a user shared a post on various subreddits including Off My Chest and Just No SO titled, "I think my boyfriend is trying to baby trap me." It read, "I don't know what to do. I need help, please. Throw away for obvious reasons. Sorry for any errors, English is not my first language. I've been dating my boyfriend for a year. I live with him. My family life isn't great. My dad has been out of the picture for as long as I remember, and my mum is very mentally unstable. She has been diagnosed BPD but isn't on treatment. She has always been a jealous person. She showers you with love and affection, but if you don't do the same for her, she will blow up. I've seen her do that to all of her partners and to me. She has been against me doing anything other than staying home with her for as long as I remember, against me having friends, studying for school, working out, etc. Always putting me down for anything. She has had better and worse times, and the last year has been one of her downs. She went absolutely mental when she found out I had a boyfriend. She tried to prohibit me seeing him, made scenes whenever I went to spend time with him, saying I am changing her, etc. Went as far as trashing my room when I left for a whole day. One day I came home and she told me I either stay here with her and broke up with him, or when I leave she will change the locks and never let me come back. I called my boyfriend crying and he offered for me to move in with him. I agreed. She has sent me pictures of her burning everything I had in my room, that she never wants to see me again and that I'm a terrible daughter, made posts on Facebook calling me a whore, etc. Everything has been going okay until a week ago. I came back from school and told him we had vocational orientation and that a nurse had come to tell us about her career. I told him I thought what she did was really cool and I would love to be a nurse. He asked me if you had to study to be a nurse and I said you had. It was about 3 years, I think. He then asked me when would we get married and I laughed and said, I don't know, maybe after I finish the career. He frowned and said that he wanted to have kids young. I told him we could, just not that young. We still have plenty of time and I thought it was best for both of us to have careers before having kids. There wasn't a rush. He said he was running late for work and the conversation was cut short. He has since then done something really weird in which he starts talking semi-sarcastically about when I start studying and asking me things like if I am going to go to parties or make more friends or if I'll still have time for him. When I ask him why is he talking like that, he will deny using any tone. He has also started to try and convince me to have sex without a condom, saying that he will pull out. One time he even went as far as ignoring me asking him to put a condom on and trying to go in me, and he stopped just because I screamed at him. 3 days ago, I saw him doing something with the drawer where we keep our stash of condoms open. When he saw me, he closed it quickly. I grew suspicious and went to look at them after he left. Some of them had little dots like they had been poked. There were just a quarter of them, so I feel like if I bring this up, he will deny it and say some were just broken. The other day I asked him that if he wanted to have sex without a condom, maybe I should start doing hormonal birth control, and he said those pills make you fat and he doesn't want me being fat. He also made fun of me, saying I'm being so dramatic about being scared of getting pregnant, like it was a curse or something. I've thought about talking it out with him and reassuring him that me wanting to go to college doesn't change anything in our relationship and we still have plenty of time to form a family, but maybe I'm being naive. I really do love him and I don't want to end this relationship. Up until now, he has been the biggest blessing. I don't know what else to do. I don't have access to my own money to get my own birth control without him. I live with him. I don't have anywhere else to go. This is an extremely concerning situation, and what makes it so much worse is that OP is just 17 years old, and she was 16 when she got into this relationship. Her boyfriend is 23. It goes without saying that the age difference at her age is a cause for concern, and she lives in Argentina where the age of consent is 18, so it's also illegal. I don't doubt for a second that he is trying to baby trap her. The things he's said to her are huge red flags, and condoms don't just randomly have dots that look like holes. OP didn't give much context on their relationship in general outside of this, but after reading that first post, I really wouldn't have been surprised if he's a controlling person in general. And lo and behold, her next post confirms that. Quote, "He takes care of everything money involved, which makes sense because he makes the money, but it is to the extent I don't remember him ever giving me cash, not even to buy the simplest, cheapest items. Whenever we need something, he goes and buys it, from groceries to clothes to everything. He has made me wait in stores with the things we need for the house for him to come to where I am and pay. Even when he charges my public transport card, he asks how many trips I need to make and charges exactly the money for them, not 1 cent more. I have access to absolutely zero money. I used to think it was just a quirk of his, but now I feel like it's deliberate. My phone doesn't have a plan, I just use Wi-Fi and have him as my emergency contact if I'm outside the house. I don't have friends or really any type of relationships that he isn't also friends with. All my friends are people he knew first. If I do anything without him, he insists on dropping me off and picking me up. He asks me for selfies of what I'm doing every hour of the day if we are apart. He convinced me to delete together all of our conventional social media, Insta, Twitter, TikTok, claiming it's better for our mental health, and then he didn't delete his because he realised he needed them for his job. He doesn't know English and he has started complaining whenever I consume any media in English, claiming it makes him feel left out and he wants to be able to engage in my hobbies. So to summarise, OP is 17 years old. She moved in with her 23-year-old boyfriend who she met at 16 after being abused and basically thrown out by her own mum. She has no money, no independence, no friends, and no one to rely on apart from her boyfriend who is clearly controlling every aspect of her life and trying to get her pregnant against her will. Leaving an abusive relationship is incredibly hard as it is, but she literally has nowhere to go and no one who can help her. It wasn't until after her first post that she actually realised her relationship isn't normal. She knew the pregnancy situation was a bit of a red flag, but she didn't see any problems with the rest of it, until other users suggested she either leave him or took action behind his back, and it dawned on her that she wouldn't really be able to do any of that. It's hardly surprising considering the way she was treated by her mum. She was so used to being in such a volatile environment that any situation where she wasn't being thrown out of her home and having her belongings set on fire probably seemed good in comparison, when in reality she was jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. There was an update a few days later in which OP stated that she made an excuse to avoid contact with her boyfriend over the weekend, and although he accepted it, he did make what he claimed to be a joke when she came out of the shower, saying, "If you don't let me get what's mine, I'll have to just get it myself," which is obviously creepy as hell. Thanks to the advice given by a Redditor who also lives in Argentina, OP skipped the first period of school one day and went to get a birth control shot without having to tell her boyfriend. She applied for government aid for high school students and started looking into other programs that provide financial help. So while she mentions having doubts about leaving him in the post, it's promising that she's thinking ahead and hopefully giving herself the means to do so in the future. Around a month later, there was another update in which OP revealed that her boyfriend had been physically abusing her and SAing her. He'd cheated on her and she found, quote, a lot of other worrying stuff on his phone, though didn't specify what exactly. Here are a few excerpts from the post. "I didn't know how to leave. I had no money or anywhere to go. At the perfect time, I remembered a very specific figure from my past that had almost left my mind between traumatic events, who had promised to help me if anything wrong happened to me. I'm sorry this is vague. I do not want to give identifiable information." She agreed to help me, so without thinking about it too long, I left him a note explaining why I was leaving without saying where to, and I left with like 2 t-shirts and my phone charger. This was last week on Monday. The person who has helped me escape has been nothing short of wonderful and the most loving human being, but that sadly hasn't made this past week any less horrifying. He tried contacting me on all platforms we have, and I answered all of his first messages, explaining I am okay but I don't want to go back, and blocked him afterwards, except for email just in case. He started sending messages saying he couldn't live without me, asking me to come back. Then they fluctuated to full walls of paragraphs saying how much he hated me and how much of a horrible human being I am, and threatening physical violence. He then sent me a message with a folder with nude pictures he had of me, saying he would share them if I didn't agree to see him. The pictures are half pictures of myself I knew he had, but they don't really show anything that would gain me a ban on Instagram. They are just suggestive. There were a whole other bunch of pictures that I sent him on limited time, agreeing to his persistence for them, and I'd specifically asked to not screenshot. But oh well, in these pictures I specifically didn't show my face or any defining feature that would tell it's me. The real issue comes with a couple of pictures he added where I am fully naked and you can recognise it's me. I did not take or consent to be taken these pictures. He had taken them while I was asleep or distracted. I don't think he would be dumb enough to share this because I'm a minor, and doing so would fuck up his life way more than it would mine. Still, it scares me very much. His actions don't end here. He then proceeded to say if I didn't answer, he would find where I was and go and kill me. My mum and a school friend asked me where I was because he had gone to their houses demanding to see me and threatening them if they didn't let him in. I made the terrible mistake of telling my mum where I was and what was going on, and she didn't have much of a response other than telling me that it was my fault and that I deserved it because she always told me he was bad news. Well, turns out my ex-boyfriend's mum called mine crying and pleading with her to convince her that I return home with him because she feared for his mental health and life if I didn't. And the piece of shit I have the displeasure of calling my mum has told her where and with who I am. She informed me this. Her excuse was that she knows how hard it is to be a mother and she empathises with her because I'm a horrible human being that keeps hurting people. Since this, he has just sent me one email saying he knows where I am and nothing else. I'm incredibly terrified and haven't left the house. It's great that OP found the courage to leave, but unfortunately it sounds like her nightmare is far from over. I'm not at all familiar with the law in Argentina, but I'm fairly certain this POS has broken multiple laws. He has inappropriate photos of OP, especially ones taken without her consent, which, considering she's underage, must be classed as CP. He had contact with her when she was underage, which is statutory wrong, and on top of that, SA'd her against her will. He's harassing her, threatened to kill her, shown up at her mum's house and the house of one of her school friends, threatening them too. Hopefully, the fact she has evidence of all this will allow her to take legal action against him. This man is an abuser, and by the sound of it, an absolute psychopath who will either harm OP more than he already has, or target another vulnerable underage girl to do all this to. I feel even worse for OP with the fact that her mum doesn't seem to care, and has also made it easier for the ex-boyfriend to find OP, knowing what he has threatened to do to her. A couple of weeks later, OP commented on a now deleted Ask Reddit post. I broke up with my boyfriend and it feels like every minute, every day, I am thinking if I would have been able to make it work otherwise. That was over 2 months ago and she hasn't posted since. Let's end this video on a slightly lighter note. The final post we'll cover is from the IASIP subreddit, a community dedicated to the TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. In season 16, which is still airing now, there's an episode titled The Gang Gets Cursed, in which the main characters are supposed to appear in a reality TV show. Spoiler alert in case you haven't seen it. Another character puts a curse on one of them before they all experience various events that lead them to believe the curse was real. One's face becomes paralysed, another suddenly starts forgetting simple words, etc. Turns out that most of these bad omens can be explained by the characters being exposed to mould that had been growing on the carcass of a dead monkey in the bar. Anyway, it turns out watching this episode could well have saved one Reddit user's life. Here's their post. For weeks prior to the airing of this episode, I'd been experiencing confusion, memory issues, insomnia, hallucinations, flu symptoms, and a slew of other horrible issues. I had no idea what was causing it, and my attempts to seek medical help got me nowhere. When the gang realised at the end of the episode that their curse was caused by mould, it made me curious about the symptoms of mould exposure, as I deep cleaned my girlfriend's apartment of a ton of mould around the same time as I started having all these confusing symptoms. Sure enough, I have now found out that I have a severe mould allergy, and cleaning years worth of mould from her apartment with no protective gear or ventilation triggered a horrible reaction from me, and the lingering spores kept me sick for weeks. I never would have figured out what was afflicting me had it not been for this episode, and could have developed a far more chronic illness. I have now moved out of that apartment and am feeling infinitely better. I strongly encourage anyone with unexplained illness to look into mould poisoning, and anyone dealing with mould to use proper protective gear. Thank you, Sonny. I can't imagine how much worse things might have gotten if I never saw that episode. Thankfully, this story had a happy ending, but could have turned out so much worse if OP never watched that episode and put 2 and 2 together. Exposure to mould can cause respiratory illnesses, infections, and can even be life-threatening, so it's a good job they realised what was causing their symptoms before it was too late. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments, plus any suggestions you might have for a future episode of Disturbing Reddit posts. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Huge thank you to my Ko-fi members and channel members whose names are on screen now. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week in a new video.